back when the whole George Floyd incident was taking place, and obviously my client Ben Crump was representing the family. I've got a friend of mine, his name is Paul, and he has a friend, he's a white male, and he has a best friend whose name's Whitney. They were best friends. And so, when this whole thing took place, like Paul couldn't even call Whitney because he was just so embarrassed about what was going on in the world, right? And so eventually he got the courage to call him. They talked it out, and he's like, we need to do something about this, right? Because when my granddaughter at some point says, hey, Grandpa Paul, do you remember when all that stuff was happening in the world and George Floyd and this and that? Yeah, I remember that, honey. You were alive at that time? Yeah, I was alive. Well, what did you do about it, right? And he didn't have an answer. He wasn't doing anything about it. And so he called up Whitney and they talked, and then eventually they brought in Jennifer, a black female, another mutual friend that he grew up with, and then he called me. And so there's 4 of us. And at that point in my life, I was thinking, like, I've grown a business, and I've made a pretty good living, but I haven't really made a difference, right? And so together we got together and we created something called Articulate Change, and it's just to basically create social equity in the world, and so. It's part-time right now, and we've been meeting for about 2 years, and we meet twice a week, and we make a little progress. And at the end of the day, it was all worth it if we were just able to just change one person, right? And so I'm fighting a similar fight, but yeah.
It matters. It matters because you know why? What happened with George Floyd, for me, my George Floyd was Rodney King, right? This was the first time something like that in my lifetime had been caught on video. And there's plenty of video. You look at videos from MLK and a lot of the civil rights movement, and you see people being hosed down and attacked by dogs and all of that. But this was like a citizen caught this on tape. And it was awful. And then you see pictures of Rodney King after this happened. I was an undergraduate in college at Johns Hopkins University, surrounded mostly by white peers when this happened. And I was heartbroken. And I saw this guy and how beat up he was and what they had done. And then they all got off. A jury of their peers found them not guilty. So that was like my sort of George Floyd, when I really was like, the world is like, up and unfair, evil, and like, you treat people less than based on this. What happened though for me during George Floyd was we're all in this pandemic, we're all at home, we're all emotionally vulnerable because we've been in isolation. I mean, literally marriages were falling apart. Yeah. Because as much as people love their spouses, you didn't plan on being at home with them with, for 2 years with right? Yeah. And so then this thing happened on TV, and this, however many 8 minutes and whatever seconds happened, and this man is like crying out for his mother, which that's what happens when you reach the end, like your loved ones, your ancestors, you see them. Sure. Right? Because you're about to transition, and people saw that and it became inescapable. I can't tell you how many people said to me, I had no idea it was that bad. People that I went to school with who saw the same Rodney King tape, it didn't impact them that way. There was something, and I work very closely with many living civil rights leaders. Sure. And I asked them, does this feel or seem different for you? And they said it does. Not because things like this haven't happened, but America is in a different place right now. There's like a different groundswell of opportunity. Yeah. Young white kids are like at the forefront and a hell no for a lot of this stuff. My peers and even older people didn't quite get or feel how just bad it can be for people of color and poor people. And then you've got also activism. So when you say out of that, you asked yourself the question, what can I do? That also I think feels very different, because what's happened in the past is people have shook their head and said, that's terrible. Yeah. But something different happened with George Floyd and during COVID and this all coming together,
Yeah.
people started asking the question, what can I do? And then some people actually took something on.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it is a little bit different.
It is different.
Thank you for what you're doing, and be an ally, because the power of what you could say to a white male will hold a lot more weight than what I would say.
Sure.
You have a lot more credibility with certain people than I do. So thank you for what you're doing.
And thank you for what you're doing.